and in the personality of people's lives. I've noticed lately two divides. The one is the masculine, feminine, young boys that are supposed to be masculine, but they're tending towards the feminine. And then on the other side, and then on the other side, the young guys that are having a go at life. Just the other day here at the boat ramp, a young guy pulled up on a Harley. I had to go over and say to him, "How old are you?" And he said, 21. And it reminded me of myself. Like back when I was that age, I had my house when I left home when I was 16, had my house when I was 18. I had motorbikes, but I bought my first Harley when I was 21, a 1990 Softail Heritage. How yous going? And then I went on to sell and buy houses and whatnot. But I decided to live a sober life very young. I didn't want to drink alcohol, and I didn't want to take drugs. I didn't want anything that was going to disrupt my mind or upset my mind. And unfortunately today, there's only a minority, a very slim minority. I don't know exactly what the figures are, but there's a very slim minority of young men that are not allowing substances to infiltrate their mind. Now, substances don't teach you how to deal with anything. And I've seen these people on substances and they'll go, "I'm depressed," or, "Oh, I'm, got anxiety." Well, get off the drugs. "Oh, well, the drugs help me to prevent." No, they don't. Not the marijuana and stuff like that don't help jack shit. Neither does alcohol. Doesn't stop the underlying issues in the spirit and the soul and the mind. It only numbs the mind temporarily, might I say, to these troubles that people carry. Now, what makes me angry, well, not angry, I suppose, makes me oppose this is the fact that a lot of parents will encourage it now, and they're forgetting the great characteristics of fortitude and resilience, perseverance, and these things. Anybody can get up, and I just want to say this. I've noticed lately that a lot of people around where I live are using work as a way of hiding their hurt. This is the trolley for the man that used to live there under the bridge. He's disappeared, and that's what's left of his belongings. Don't let that be you. There's the stadium here at Gosford on the Central Coast, but work will help you to bring an income, and okay, it'll occupy your time and probably get your mind off things. But at the same token, it doesn't allow you, in most cases, the privilege of stopping and repairing yourself. The privilege of stopping and repairing yourself. What I'm finding is a lot of people are just consuming themselves with work, which is their business, it's totally up to them. But not allowing themselves the privilege to be in the spirit, a lot of these young men turn passive. They can't find their way into work or maintain a job or go forward in life. Passivity gets a hold of their mind. They become paranoid and fearful. Then they become unable to inject themselves into a job or something like that. And they isolate themselves, or they get a job and think they know everything, and the next thing they don't have a job again. And I mean, it's the way these people are raised, I suppose. There's a lot of ego out there now where parents have failed in producing character and have just fed the child's ego. But when push come to shove, the underlying issues were never really dealt with. You know, you get tired of running into people, trying to have a relationship, and the next thing there's a conflict over something that really has nothing to do with the relationship. It's usually an outsider or some kind of interference or some kind of immaturity or infantile behaviour. And the next thing you know, that's the end of that. Well, you move on. But what will happen is you'll go through, and this is what happens to a lot of young men when they fail, and old men as well, in their relationships. A lot of the time it may not be their fault. If it is their fault, you've got to do a post-mortem on your relationship. You have to do a post-mortem on your relationship. Where it went wrong, why it went wrong, how it could have been better, what you're at the mercy of, where the judgment came from, what the final verdict was, and how it ended up the way that it did. You'll find with covert emotional incest people, be it the parent or the child, whichever one you get mixed up in, you'll find that there'll be an overprotection of either the mother or the son. And this is how they guarantee that they're not going to be left on their own. They have this sacred loyalty, this anointed loyalty to one another, which is based on ego. It's past maternal. Some of you will say, well, that's what mothers and children do. It's maternal. No, it's not maternal. It's past maternal. It's gone into a lust, an intimate form of adult to adult relationship, but it's the adult and the child. And these feminine males, they overprotect their mother because it's the mother in most cases that's they've spent most of their time with. The father's been dysfunctional, the father's let them down one way or another, and the next thing you know, they've gravitated to their mother. The mother needs them as a form of masculine company. I've seen this, I've seen the ugly side of this on several occasions, where the mother's all but having sex with the son. It's disgraceful. The bond, the enmeshment, the attraction, the submission. And I've got no mercy for it. I've got no time for it. I don't think that there's any excuse for it. But people are ignorant of how this can work and how this happens and how it enables dysfunction. How it enables dysfunction. And it's a tragedy, you know. I just come out of a relationship just recently where there was mother to son enmeshment, and I warned this woman that, you know, I don't mind, it's got nothing to do with me whether you talk to your son or whatever you got to do with your son, but if it crosses into our time together, then you need to deal with it, because my time's important. He doesn't want to have anything to do with me in his life. He'll sit and listen to, or I'll sit and listen to him, or certain things like that, but he doesn't want to have anything specific to do with me. So therefore I'm putting boundaries around him and how he affects our relationship. Well, she didn't want that, because the bond between the mother and the son was more powerful than the bond between the mother and the person she was making love with. Now you need to understand that. I'm going to say it again. The bond between the mother and the son was more powerful than the bond between the mother and the person she was making love with. That's covert emotional incest. And what you'll find with these young feminine men, they think they're masculine, but they're not. And that's evident in the fact that they can't manage their relationships very well. Their relationships don't last because they gravitate back to where it's safe, which is with the mother. Strangers, people that you get into relationships with, well, hopefully strangers, otherwise we're getting into another form of incest, but we won't go there. They won't tolerate certain forms of behaviour. Like, I won't tolerate covert emotional incest. I hate it. And you've got to be onto it straight away. This one hid itself pretty well. I could see that there was some pride and ego going on with the son, and the mother made out she had a handle on it, but she didn't. She was the one that was feeding it. She was the one that created it. She was the one that enabled it. He couldn't stand a man near his mother. He was all but peeling the wallpaper off the walls. It was horrible. So there's a lot of enablement of unresolved, because people are trying to meet their needs through their parents or through their children, rather than through the development of relationships. And when you get into a relationship with people that have been mixed up in drugs and alcohol for most of their lives, it's a whole different dimension. You've got all the side effects and after effects and things that come with it when they get older in life. You know, they think that it doesn't affect them, but I can assure you, science tells us that it does. And again, here's another way in which resolve is not possible. When you're with somebody and the love they have, not the maternal love, but in terms of security and even hypergamy, and hypergamy in terms of men and women, what's best for, making preferential choices for the best outcomes they can get with a partner and children as well. When it's based on parent and child as being the primary source of that supply, well, the third person, the third party, isn't going to come out very well, because they'll default back to each other, and that means you have to exclude the outsider. You have to exclude the person that's trying to be one or the other's partner, the outsider. Because when they default, if there's an issue or something, when they default, and they will default, if you stand up to it or say anything about it, you will be punished. When all this come to the surface in the last relationship, this woman said that she was good at resolving things. Well, I have to argue that when it come down to her maternal values, I haven't heard a word from her since. At one stage there, her sons were trying to deal with it all, and I said, you guys need to speak to my son, which he's a roguey, tough little bugger. They knew that they were no match for him. and she just disappeared. It was woeful, absolutely woeful. So you've got to be, what is love in our day? What is it? How does it work? How do people divvy all this up? You're dealing with liars, you're dealing with schemers, you're dealing with cunningness, you're dealing with people that are not psychologically sound. They think they are, but they're not. They're not doing the work that it takes to be psychologically sound. So there's a lot that you have to take into account when it comes to the people that you get involved with. There is a lot. Now, I'm not being critical, I'm just trying to give you strategies and show you the underneath side of how unresolved is enabled, because people will default back to where they feel safe. And if there's covert emotional incest involved, which is when a parent and a child are sharing feelings that only two adults should share, you've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. And this goes for parent relationships and child relationships. It sabotages everything. It ruins everything. There's just no resolve, because unresolved's enabled. It has to be for the covert emotional incest to survive. You'll see it. You'll see men with their mothers and they're 50 and 60-year-old. They just weren't able to navigate a relationship. And women as well, on their own for most of their lives, because they weren't tolerable. Men couldn't tolerate them, and they couldn't tolerate men. So it was easier for them to be on their own. That's how this works. That's the damage of, this is the ongoing damage, real-time damage of how this works. Now they'll just sit there and justify it. Oh well, he's gone or she's gone and we're all back to normal now. But the fact of the matter is, nothing was resolved. The problem wasn't fixed. If you identify and say something like, I think you guys are a little bit close, or you seem to be spellbound by your mother, or you seem to be spellbound by your son or your daughter or your father, or whatever it is, it's a spellbound. You'll see it, you'll be able to see it. Then there's nothing resolved. It's all, you'll just be pushed to the side. The third person will always be pushed to the side when it comes to parent-child enmeshment or emotional ancestral connections. And that's just how it works, and you have to accept that, and you have to either leave as quickly as you can and let them get on with their unresolved dysfunction, or find a way of putting up with it. But I can guarantee you will be the victim. You will be the one that's harmed in the end, because all this was formed before you come along, long before you come along. The parent will make the child the hero, the whole child will make the parent the servant. There's all different combinations in which this will work, but it all strokes the ego and the lust, and of which covert emotional incest feeds itself upon. So I hope this helps. This is Dr. Jason W. Morrison, Theologist, New South Wales, Australia, speaking on unresolved. Bye for now.